Knowledge that gets noticed.
When you look at them on the world stage, they're supposed to be these great strategic partners. They hold joint military exercises, they talk about a deep friendship, but behind the scenes? Well, the relationship between India and the United States is deeply fractured. You might even say it's on the brink of being broken. So let's dive into this incredibly complicated story.
Just look at this quote. The U.S. cannot be trusted. That is a stunningly blunt statement. And it's coming from a man whose words carry an immense amount of weight. When a former head of India's central bank says something like that, you know there's a really serious problem brewing just beneath the surface.
So, who exactly is Raghuram Rajan? Well, he's not just some former central banker. He's currently a professor at the University of Chicago. So he's a total insider with a global perspective, and he's speaking from inside the US about this relationship's decay. This warning is not just political noise. It's a clear signal of some deep structural damage.
To really get why this is so shocking, you first have to understand the official story. Because publicly, India and the US are, well, closer than ever. The whole narrative is one of shared values, strategic alignment, and this common vision for the future.
And you see this partnership on display all the time, right? It's built on things like the big Malabar naval exercises, where their navies are out there training side by side. They're cooperating on this grand Indo-Pacific strategy, supposedly united in countering threats in the region. And of course, there's all the talk about the amazing personal friendship between their leaders. On paper, everything looks absolutely perfect.
Yeah, but behind all the photo ops and the handshakes, there is a jarring economic reality. It's like while the generals are planning together, the economists are busy fighting a trade war.
And this is where the whole situation starts to feel, well, kind of absurd. The US has slapped tariffs of around 50% on India, its so-called strategic partner. And their regional rival, Pakistan, they're only paying about 19%. This isn't just some minor trade dispute, it's a massive strategic contradiction.
Just let that sink in for a second. Our source material points out that India has become the single most tariffed country by the United States. We're talking even more than China, the country the US has been in a very public, very loud trade war with. So how can two nations be military allies and economic enemies at the exact same time? It just doesn't add up.
And as Rajan explains, this has huge political consequences back home in India. It's a public humiliation, what he calls a slap in the face for Prime Minister Modi. The opposition can just turn to him and ask a very simple, very powerful question. So, where is this great friendship you're always talking about?
And as if that wasn't already enough to deal with, there's another major geopolitical shift happening that is forcing India to completely rethink its entire position. And this one involves the US and China.
It's a concept called the G2, or the Group of Two. Basically, the idea is that the US and China, instead of competing against each other, could just team up to run the world. Now, for a country like India, which is trying so hard to establish itself as a major global power, the thought of being pushed to the side by a US-China alliance, well, that's a total nightmare scenario.
This just completely pulls the rug out from under India's whole strategy. The plan was based on the idea that as the US and China fought, America would naturally gravitate towards India for tech and manufacturing. But if the US and China suddenly become buddies, that whole strategy just collapses. The advantage India was counting on, poof, it just vanishes.
So now, India is facing this two-front problem. You've got these punishing tariffs on one side, and the threat of being strategically ignored on the other. And it's forced them into a very, very risky gamble as they try to figure out how to deal with an ally that's acting more and more like an enemy.
So what can they do? Well, broadly, they have two paths they can take. On one hand, there's strategic patience. Just do nothing for now. Take the economic hit and hope the whole situation sorts itself out, maybe after a US Supreme Court ruling on tariffs or something. The other path, strategic retaliation. Hit back hard with your own tariffs, just like China did, and show the world you can't be pushed around.
For now, it looks like India has chosen the path of patience. They're avoiding a big tariff war, but, and here's where it gets interesting, they've added a very clever twist. While they aren't hitting back economically, they are sending some very clear signals that, hey, we have other friends and we're not afraid to call them.
And the proof is right here. India's defense minister recently announced, very publicly, that they would buy even more S-400 missile defense systems from Russia, a move they absolutely know will infuriate Washington. It's a direct message. It says, if you won't be a reliable partner for us, fine. We will strengthen our ties with your rivals.
The damage from this whole period of mistrust and economic conflict, it's deep. What our sources are telling us is that even if a new U.S. administration comes in and tries to fix things, it could take as long as 8 years to fully repair the trust that has been shattered. And in geopolitics, 8 years is an eternity.
Which brings us right back to the central question. Is India's strategy of patience the right move, or will it just lead to them being taken for granted? Should they risk an all-out trade war to demand respect? The path India chooses next won't just define its relationship with the US, it will define its place in the world for decades to come.